Dr. Jeremy Weiss here. I'm founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders like the founders of P90X, Baby Einstein, Atari, and many more, and how they overcome big challenges in life and business. This is part of the e-commerce mastery series where top sellers and experts teach you what really works to boost your e-commerce business. Our sponsor today is Rise25.com. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to be around other top performers to solve big challenges and form deep friendships, this is for you. It's a group of top entrepreneurs that come together to solve their biggest and your biggest business challenges and leave with lifelong friendships. Rise25 is run by myself, John Corcoran. Check it out at rise25.com. It's an application only since we keep it to a very small group. And I want to give a shout out, thank you to Shane Stott for introducing my guest today. Today we have Brian Oakes. He's founder of Global Goods, where they source and manufacture agave nectar, coconut oil, and Mexican vanilla products. They produce their own natural skincare line, Cocave, C-O-C-A-V-E. They sell all over the world. And what's interesting, Brian, is you do this by also providing local jobs to struggling areas like in Africa, Asia, Dominican Republic, and many more. Thank you for joining me, first of all.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You know, I wanted to talk about some of the big challenges and mistakes, but I have to ask about the struggling nation. You know, setting this up, this does not seem like an easy thing. And I was reading on your site. Tell me about the first time. I think you went to Africa first, right?
No, I actually went to Mexico first.
Oh, Mexico.
Yep.
I mean, setting up the struggling nations for your for your business.
Yeah. So Africa and the coconut oil project was one of the first ones.
So when you went to Africa, I know we'll get into the Mexican vanilla was first, then we'll talk about the agave and the coconut oil and Cocave line. But talk about when you first went to Africa and what it was like.
Well, I first started going there as kind of a humanitarian project where I was trying to build schools, libraries, wells, water cisterns, things like that. And it's funny, on the second night there, we had a cobra come slithering right into where we were
taken
staying.
the next flight home.
Exactly. I was like, I'm going to die before we ever get off the ground here.
It was in your room?
Well, we were staying in I mean, if you call it a room, it had we had concrete walls and no door and that type of stuff. So, anyways, it was an open area, I guess. We were still working on construction for it, and so that gave us a pretty good scare right off the bat.
Wow. So what do you do when a cobra's in your room? I mean, do you just leave?
Yeah, well, we screamed like a bunch of little girls, and then there was a native who came running in with a bow and arrow, and he shot it. And
really?
It was So we were in like camping chairs, and so we kicked these camping chairs around, and we're kind of using it to try and guide this snake. I mean, I didn't know what kind of snake it was until I bumped it, and I was trying to knock him towards the door, and he reared up, and I realized it was a cobra at that point. And
oh my God.
I'm not sure. I may have wet my pants at that point. But
I'm wetting my pants listening to the story.
And so a native comes running in with a bow and arrow and shoots it.
He actually shot it.
Takes the head off as it's moving, all this stuff. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And later I realized that arrow just barely missed me as it went past, And so I was like, I'm not going to survive this. We got a 10-day trip here, and this is like day 2, and I'm never going to survive it. So anyways, it was a rough welcoming there, but
day 2,
anyways,
right?
It was a fascinating trip. But I started making those type of trips. I did my best to donate with some friends of mine to build up these schools and do different things. And I started to recognize, the natives were saying things like, hey, well, we want a school in our area, and we want a school over in our village so that the kids
People were coming from other villages and saying that.
Yeah, and we got to the point where we were educating about 3,000 children there. Wow. And in the whole area, we were the first ones to ever educate somebody to make it onto college. And we had three young men that made it on to be able to go to Nairobi to go to the university there.
Wow.
And so we were really proud. We had a big celebration for them when they came back after their first semester. And it was just, everybody was so excited. And then we had just kind of a group of us and those three young men. We had just a little sit-down meeting as to how school was going, what they thought about it, and they're loving it. One of the students, this is a neat story, real quick.
Yeah.
One of the students was being sponsored by a family who had a child who was struggling really badly with diabetes. Yeah. And so we asked him what was he studying in college, and he said, "I want to find a cure for diabetes." Excuse me. For the family who's sponsoring me to go to college.
Wow.
And it's just so many awesome stories like that. And so anyways, but they were saying, what do you want us to do with the village? What do you want us to do, in this area? And they're like, once we get jobs, do you want us sending money back? And I was like, dang, I don't want to just constantly be.
You want to be
money.
Self-sustaining. You're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to sustain itself.
Exactly. And so, in all honesty, my first attempt was to see if we could grow agave there. And
how do you know? How can you even tell?
Yeah. And my history, my education was in graphic design, and so I know nothing about planting plants.
I mean, you just bring a plant with you and plant it there and see if it works? So what did you do?
We brought a few, and then we had irrigation issues. The areas we were in just didn't have a lot of water to work with during certain parts of the year. And, with an agave plant, it takes about 8 to 10 years to grow it to full maturity before you can harvest it. And then you have to start all over again. And so that was just an enormous project. And I realized I wasn't in a position to be able to take that on at that time. And so when I came back home, I was showing friends photos from the trip. And there's one particular photo where there's this stream that's kind of running through all these palm trees and stuff, and without seeing them, without being there, feeling the heat and the mosquitoes and all that kind of stuff, it looks like the most beautiful place in the world. And it doesn't look like something you'd picture from Africa,
Right.
And anyways, and I was just sitting there staring at what a beautiful picture that was, and then I was thinking about the coconuts, how we climbed up, I didn't, but somebody was with us.
You're like, good luck with that.
He climbed the tree and grabbed a coconut, and so I started thinking about coconuts. So I was like, man, I know there's a lot of stuff that people use coconuts for. I watched them use a lot of it there, and so I was like, I wonder if we could turn that into some type of business. And so when I got back home, I started working with a local university. Brigham Young University. I was working with them to their design department and trying to figure out, or the engineer department, trying to figure out, can we make machines that don't require electricity to be able to harvest something from the coconuts? And so we decided coconut oil was the one that we would try. So we spent a year working on it. We brought these machines back. We tried to use...
So it's a machine that doesn't require electricity.
Yes, yeah.
And this team of engineers started working on, where do they even start with that?
Well, we had started earlier working on projects where they would make merry-go-rounds that would pump electricity or would generate electricity, so they could use the power of the kids playing on these things.
And yeah. Oh, cool.
Electricity that way. We also had... a teeter-totter, I think, where you rock back and forth, and that would pump a well, and so the kids would sit there and play on that, and then that would start pumping a well. So we had done some fun projects before.
It's like child slave labor, but they're playing.
yes, exactly. If you're going to play, we're going to get something out of it if we can. And so, anyways, it turned out to be a lot of fun for everybody, and more of a project of can we do it versus is it a sustainable
What did
project?
The final contraption look like?
It wasn't very big at all. It was, two people could lift it out of a truck, and it was just a small little machine with a grinder on it where it would grind the meat out. And then we would take that meat, and there was also another device where you could crack open the coconuts easily. And so anyways, you crack it open and you grind out the meat as much as you can. Yeah. And then we would put this meat on a drying table, and there would be these women just sitting there chopping it all up into little pieces, moving it across in stages. Yeah. And when it gets to the end, the oil's just dripping off the meat. and then we put it in this big kind of cylinder press where we got the biggest African we could, and you would just pull the handle and it would press it down, and we would squeeze out as much oil as we could. And then we would take it to another facility where they filter water for drinking and that type of stuff, just to make sure there were no bugs or bacteria in the oil, that type of thing. And then we would bottle it in drums, and we put it in 55-gallon drums. And the first shipment that we did, I brought in 6 55-gallon drums. I was like, I don't even know if I can sell this stuff.
Where did they come into? Where do you have them shipping? Like your house? Is there like a shipping center? Where did they?
We have a warehouse in Los Angeles where we.
You're like your wife's like, well, what's going on? Those drums in your kitchen?
Yes. Yeah, actually, yeah. No, those first ones we brought into. We have a detached garage, so yeah, we brought them into there.
Right.
And I didn't bottle them. I didn't know really what I was going to do with these drums, and so I just shot off a newsletter saying, hey, we've got this new product line of coconut oil. I don't even know, I've heard it's good for you, but that's, here's the story behind it. And boom, within a matter of a couple days, all 6 drums were gone. And I was like, oh,
did
okay,
people buy the whole drum? Like,
yeah, so that's the majority of the selling that we do now is that's a big part of our business is
I had no idea.
Yeah, and big drums or totes, they're even larger than that.
Okay.
And so yeah, so we sold those drums, and we bottled some of it as well, but we sold everything in just a matter of days. And it takes a while to get this production going, so we were out of stock for a long period of time until we could ramp up. And now we bring in containers full of 80 drums at a time.
Wow,
and,
that's
or we'll
crazy.
bring them in totes, and so we're moving several containers.
If anyone wants to see the drums, you can go to globalgoods.com/products, and if you scroll down, I'm assuming it's those big blue drums. Is that what it is? Yeah. Because I remember seeing this. It looks like something that you would store like a huge toxic waste, like to get rid of as much stuff as possible, in these huge drums that are tied down.
Yeah, so we work with a lot of manufacturers, a lot of bakeries and stuff like that. They'll order in larger amounts like that just for discount purposes.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'll have to introduce you to Matt Geddes, who I had on before, who they actually have a coconut oil company. And so I'll have to introduce you, because that may be, I forget, it's called Skinny, and they have coconut oil. So, yeah, I've probably mentioned that to Shane at some point, and that's probably how you came up. But that's amazing. So you did all of this without realizing, how am I going to sell it?
Oh, yeah. Well, and, I ran into so many problems doing it. So, for example, they thought, one of the guys in Africa decided to go to the Philippines to see how they
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're like, awesome, let's do that. So we sent them there to learn a little bit more about the process, how they did it, and make it a little more, run everything just a little bit faster and more efficient that way. And so he came back and he's like, all right, let's try this carbon filtration system. I was like, sure, whatever, man. You know more than I do now, so let's go with it. So he set up this carbon filtration system and sent me 80 drums where he ran it through the filtration system but did not filter the carbon back out of the oil. And so we brought in 80 drums of coconut oil that looked more like olive oil. It had kind of a green tint to it. And I was like, oh no, that's a big mistake. Like, we can't be making that kind of mistake. So now I had 80 drums that I had to get rid of, and I wasn't quite sure what to do with it.
What is it? Is it what is, because it was a different, is typical filtration, you have to get the carbon out of it?
Yeah.
So is it bad without, can you refilter it, or what's the bad part about it?
If you had the machinery to do it, you could do that.
Okay.
There wasn't anything bad with the oil per se by itself. It just did not look good. It did
so
not
it was the looks wise. Like if someone ate it, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, you could eat it and you'd be perfectly fine. But in terms of a lot of our water filtration systems have carbon in them. It reduces the smell. It reduces, other stuff like that.
So what'd you do with those drums? You have
Well,
80 drums that look
yeah,
like
I
olive
had
oil.
80 drums, and I'm like, what am I gonna do with this? And
Yeah.
so I found a company who made lotions, and they said, oh, we don't care what the oil looks like. It's not going to look like that as we put it into our lotion. So
Yeah.
we'll buy it from you. And
Yeah.
they loved it. They thought it was fantastic. I was just like, really? And so I was like, huh, lotions. I wonder what you could do with lotions.
Right.
and so and it's interesting because I would watch these Africans use the coconut oil on their skin, and they would use the coconut oil in their hair, and
Yeah.
and they had some fantastic skin. And so then on my trips to Mexico, and we were introduced to agave nectar at one point. I met this old lady who uses agave on everything, wounds, you name
Really?
it. She's using agave on everything. And so she's like, oh, yeah, this stuff's miraculous. It'll heal anything, And so I was like, what the? All right, that's fascinating. So anyway, so I one day I was just sitting here at my desk, and I was like, I wonder what I could make if I mixed all these things together. And so I mixed the coconut oil, I mixed the agave nectar, I mixed the Mexican vanilla, and stirred it all up, and it smelled really good. It smelled like it'd be a yummy smoothie or something,
Right.
And I
You
was
could
like,
drink it or put it on your skin, right?
yeah, and I was like, but I don't know what you would do with this, but it sure does smell good. And then it started to separate on my desk, and this is because you have oil and water type
Right,
things.
right.
And so it sat there for about 2 months on my desk, and my employees are like, "What are you doing with this?" And I'm like, "I'm just thinking."
Right.
And, long story short, I taught myself how to about emulsifiers, how to mix the oil and water together. I took a local class on how to make your own soaps and lotions and stuff like that. And so I went and figured out, okay, this is how it's done. Now let me see if I can make something using the different ingredients that we have.
Yeah.
And so I started mixing everything together, started making a lotion, and came out with something which my wife really, really enjoyed. And
That's the true test.
she,
Yeah, like
she's like the most honest person you could ever come across, at least with me. And if she doesn't like it, she'll let me know about it. And so anyway, so we created this lotion, and we designed up some nice packages for it and everything. And we're like, all right, let's send this off to our user base and see what they think of that. And so we sent some off, and the testimonials started coming back in that were just blowing us away.
wow.
And
What were
Jeremy,
people using it for?
well, like I said in the beginning, I'm a graphic designer, man. I'm
Right.
not a food chemist. I don't know anything about lotion. I don't know anything about that. But I just told people about the different ingredients and how people use them. Another ingredient that we added to it was coconut water. And during World War II, they ran out of plasma on some of the islands, and they started using coconut water as a replacement for plasma. And so, I added that into the product instead of, regular distilled water. And so I started, sending this product off to people. And all of a sudden, I start getting these calls from people just saying, I have my hands are cracked and bleeding. The only thing that helps them is, this special cream. I wear these gloves for 6 months out of the year when I
Wow.
sleep at night.
Wow.
And somebody bought your lotion and gave it to me, and in 4 days it cleared it up. I was
Wow.
like,
That's
oh.
crazy.
I was like, okay, well, that's great. Sometimes you can believe things like that, and it helps you. And then I
You
hear
were still
someone else.
skeptical after
Oh
hearing
yeah,
that.
I was. I really was. And then someone else called in. They're like, "Oh, my heels are cracked and bleeding, and nothing works with them." And I put this lotion on it, and 3 or 4 days cleared it right up. And I'm like, "Serious?" I'm like,
Wow.
"Maybe there's something to this." And then one of the areas that we just started getting more and more comments about was with eczema. And so people are like, the only thing that helps is a steroid shot and a prescription cream when this stuff flares up on my hands or
Yeah.
elbows or whatever. And they said, we put this stuff on it, cleared it right up. And I'm just like,
Wow.
you gotta be kidding me. What
Which
did we
one
start-
is it? Because there's a bunch of. Is it the body
that's-
cream or what is it?
That's the body cream, yep.
Okay. Because you have a
Yeah.
massage oil, you have a body cream, and then you have some other things
Yeah.
like I noticed like a tea tree oil and other things like that too.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've got a lot of different blends of different things that you can add into the products to kind of customize it for yourself. Another business that I started off in the very, very beginning. I taught myself how to develop websites.
Yeah.
And back in 2001, I developed a website creation tool that allowed people to build websites without really knowing what they were doing. And I found a niche market with cosmetologists, massage therapists, estheticians, that type of thing.
Right.
And so as I started to develop these products, these lotions and the shampoo and conditioner, I realized, I've got over in this business, I've got all these people that have all these websites, and over in this business, I got these products that these type of people use. So I've spent the last few years trying to merge those two a little bit and help each other out. And so I've made the Cocave line so that they can customize it, so that if you've got dandruff, you could add a special blend that we have into the shampoo and conditioner that'll help with dandruff, or a little more potency to the lotion for eczema or for acne and different things like that. So just doing a lot of different things, but just having a ton of fun.
That's amazing. So tell me about when you first set up and we'll backtrack and talk about how you got to that point, because there were a lot of bumps in the road up until Africa. I mean, it wasn't all, amazing sunshine and everything like that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons you went, is because you were at a point in your life that with family and health and business that allowed you to now kind of reach out to others and help others. And we'll get to that point. But I'm curious of what the original setup looked like for the coconut oil in Africa, and now what does it look like now? Like before, it was just like some lady grinding the coconut, and then people chop. Like that's what the original setup was. It was like, and was it in one of these concrete buildings, or was it just?
Yeah.
I mean, my brother went went to Africa, and he's a dentist, and his operating room was in the middle of a field with goats walking around. I mean, so I don't know what to picture for this.
Yeah, that's pretty close to accurate right there. So we had some different buildings built up. We have a big section that's a couple different schools for different age groups of students there. And then we have this main center where we bring friends and business partners and stuff into, where they all participate, and we split up during the day, and we go off into working on different projects so that not all of us are all working on the same thing. And then at night we come together and we talk about all these different things. So now we've got electricity there. We actually have a pretty slow grade of internet there as well. So we're starting to bring things in from the city and running them out to there. We still don't have paved roads going out there, so it's a slow process and a bumpy process getting there. But we have doors on the center now, so that we don't have snakes rolling in, and mosquitoes are still plentiful, so you got to be careful of that. But everything else, we're starting to get there with it and making it a little more.
How often do you go over there?
It just depends on the year and the schedule. Right now I've got people in place who do a lot of the effort over there for me. And so I don't have to go as often as I used to. So I limit it to once or twice a year now.
Yeah. So how do you manage it there? What's the staffing look like?
We actually have, altogether, there are about 200 people now who are working, gathering coconuts. I mean, we allow people to bring coconuts from anywhere they can find them. And then we will weigh them and measure them and weigh them and pay them accordingly as that, from those numbers. And then so we get people just coming from all over the place that are just trying to make income for the first time in their lives.
Yeah.
And we have a small staff of about 10 people who are making sure, that run everything for us. And one of the college students who returned from that original group, he's kind of running the whole facility for us.
So this sounds like it's a huge undertaking, time-wise, energy-wise, but money-wise. So do you have to seek out other people funding it, or can you fund it through the current business?
Not anymore. That one was almost self-funding from the very beginning.
Really? Wow.
Just because of the process and the way that we went through it. And we started so small, and we grew it at a rate that we could, and something that our business could handle. And so anyways, we were able to self-fund that one.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm sure growing up, Brian, you never thought you would have a huge facility in Africa, employing 200 people. When you were growing up, what did you want to do?
The internet didn't even exist when I was growing up. So, in fact, I remember my mother being happy if I became a UPS driver. So, there's nothing wrong
Where
with
did you grow up? Did you grow up
I
in
grew up in
Utah?
Detroit.
Oh, Detroit. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so my dad, he worked as a plant manager and used to make sure that all the parts were being assembled properly and stuff on,
Like
Ford,
Ford,
Jeep,
yeah.
Chrysler, yeah. And so he worked with a lot of different companies, and we always kind of struggled financially. I was the type of kid that my parent and my mom would always hit every garage sale. We used to make a joke as we were driving, the car just starts pulling towards the garage sale signs when you see it,
I
and,
like garage sales too, though.
yeah. And so, yeah, so I was always that type of kid. I never had a whole lot growing up. And so, anyways, my parents taught me from a very young age that, when you decide you want to do something, you go all out and you
Yeah.
go after it.
Yeah.
Real funny story. When I was 10 years old, we moved into probably the worst home that I'd ever lived in my life. And my dad just lost his job. We were renting this place, and and so I went out to go find some friends one day, and I'm just walking down the street. I'm 10 years old. I don't know any better about good kids, bad kids. Everybody's friendly as far as I knew, and so I walk over to this one corner, and there's all these kids sitting there, and so I was like, I rode my bike over there. And so I rode past them and trying to get the courage up to go talk to him, So I turn around and I come back and I'm slowing down like I'm going to talk to him. And one kid gets up and starts running right at me. Scares the heck out of me. So I'm trying to pedal to get away from there. And he grabs my bike and I hop off my bike and just start running home as fast as I can. And
Wow.
he chases me the whole way home. So I get home and I'm just, tears streaming down. I'm huffing and puffing, and my dad's sitting in his recliner chair reading his newspaper, probably looking at want ads. I don't know,
Right.
And I'm huffing and puffing. I'm like, Dad, you got to go help me. These kids just stole my bike. And I just remember him. He's sitting there reading his paper, and he folds it halfway down so I can just barely see his eyes. And he goes, Son, I got you a baseball bat. Go get your bike back. What kind of advice is that?
That doesn't seem like your happy-go-lucky personality, anyways.
No, it wasn't. So, but I did. I grabbed my baseball
Really?
bat. Yeah, and I went back over there, and my bike's sitting there next to all these kids, and I'm probably I got tears probably just streaming down my face. I can't even remember. It was probably a pretty pitiful scene, but I was like, you guys got to give me my bike back. And funny story, they thought that was pretty cool that I came back, that I was willing to fight for my bike if I needed to. They would have just beat me to a pulp, but anyway, so they gave me my bike back. We were all good friends after that. So
That's crazy.
but that's kind of the way that I grew up, and
Yeah.
they didn't fight my battles for me. They made me figure it out on my own. And so anyways, that just kind of transitioned as I got older, and it was like, there's been tons of battles that I've had to fight in the business, and just keeping it going, and tons of battles that you fight through life, and you never see things coming, but there's always something. There's always something coming right around the corner.
If you can get your bike back at 10, I guess you could set up a facility in Africa. You could do anything, right?
That's right.
So in high school, college, what did you want to do?
I had a brother-in-law's brother. So he married my sister, and his brother was a graphic designer.
Yeah.
And he used to design the coolest looking packages and boxes, designs, whatever it was. And I was like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I want to do. And so I went to college and I learned how to do that. And interesting thing is, I designed some Wolverines for our university.
Where did you go to school?
I actually went to Utah Valley.
Oh, you went to Utah Valley?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
why Utah Valley coming from Detroit?
My brother was living out here,
Oh.
and something about we had a rough rough growing up, and I think we just wanted to get out of Detroit as fast as we could. So I
Yeah.
kind of skipped a part. My dad actually started his own business, and as with any business, it struggled at first, but then all of a sudden he designed some parts that got put on every Ford Escort the year that the Ford Escort was the
Wow.
number one selling car in the world, and all of a sudden we went from having nothing to he retired early. And we're like, like, how's
Wow.
that possible?
That's amazing.
I remember one time he took me to the store to buy some shoes, and he said, it was a buy one, get another pair half off. And I never, ever went shopping with my dad ever. Like, just, it never happened. Nor I don't remember hardly going with my mom either. It was, and so anyways, so I went and picked out a pair of shoes that I could use. And he's like, well, why don't you get another pair? It's half off on the other one. I was like, who are you and what'd you do with my father? And he's like, no, it's okay, go ahead. And I'm like, no, I just don't feel comfortable. I don't even know what that's like to own two pairs of shoes that I don't need or whatever. And he pulled me aside and he's like, son, we made enough money this year. It's okay. You can get two pairs of shoes.
Wow.
And so anyway, so I went off to college and came out to Utah to go to college. And I was living with my brother at the time, and so I had some room to try some different things.
Right.
And so I let's see, the first thing I was doing, I took a screen printing class. And I designed some T-shirts with local universities, just different designs. Didn't even know it was illegal to use their logo and stuff like that. And so, but I was using my assignments, instead of just doing regular assignments, I was using projects that I could print shirts or sell
So you'd
items.
make some like University of Michigan stuff, like with the Wolverine, you said?
I didn't do that one. So actually, the school that I was going to, their mascot was a Wolverine.
Oh, it was a Wolverine also. Okay, that's why
Yeah.
I thought you were referring to the University of
Yeah.
Michigan. Yeah. Okay.
So I designed a Wolverine for the university, and they paid me $900 for it. And I was like, dude, I'm set, man. That got me through the entire summer without having to pay, having to make money for rent and everything else. It was ridiculous how cheap things were back then. But right now, that's like a car payment, But,
Yeah.
But anyway, so I designed this Wolverine for the school, and they paid me that money. And so I decided, well, if I want to get better at graphic design, I need to go to a graphic design shop and just volunteer, because no one's going to hire me as I'm just starting off in college,
Right.
And so I went and I worked with this one group, and all summer long I just watched their graphic designers. And when I would see them do something, I would move over to my computer that they let me use, and I would try and do the same thing.
Yeah.
And just kept doing that all summer long. And then I got back into school, and we were using the old programs at school, like Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, those type of things. And I was like, why are we using the old programs when the new versions are out? And the professors are like, they just barely came out with these, and we're still trying to figure them out so that we can teach them. And, we'll get to it next semester. And I'm like, I don't want to go backwards. That year happened to be a really big jump. And so I finished that semester out with my associate's degree, and I stopped. And I was just like, you know what? I've already surpassed some of these guys. And I talked to the head of the design department one time, and I was like, look, I'm doing this logo for somebody, and I want to know, what should I charge for this? And he's going, Brian, it's been 30 years since I've been in the real world selling stuff and doing things like that. And he's like, I don't even know what to charge anymore. So at that point, I just realized, you know what? I've already surpassed what they're going to be teaching me to a certain degree.
Right. You wanted the real world experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what do you do?
So I started up Mighty Oak Design.
Yeah. Yeah, on your story page, you say Mighty Oak Design, and then in the beginning, this is your words, not mine, but you were joking that it's Mighty Broke Design. Why'd you use, or who was using that, and why?
I think my brother was the one who came up with that one.
Okay. I'm like, we just met, so I would never say that if it were my words.
You're fine. It was funny. So anyways,
So you struck out on your own.
Yeah. Yep.
So what'd you do to get business? How did you get business?
I just put out ads in the newspaper, in the phone book, and then started learning about the internet. And one of the challenges I ran into was I was so young. Even though while I was going to college, I actually worked when it wasn't that one summer. I worked at the university in their kind of graphic design, doing the posters and the magazines and stuff like that for the university.
Right.
And so I learned a lot of stuff about print and how to set things up for the printers.
Yeah.
And all that type of stuff. But that was a big challenge back in the day.
Yeah.
And you mess that up and you got to reprint everything, and it's real costly. And so a lot of people didn't want to trust me with their design work because I was so young. And so I was like, man, it's like I can talk a mean talk over the telephone, but once they meet me, they're like, how old are you? And
Right.
so it was really difficult to get work that way. So then I was like, well, if I could show them my portfolio online,
Yeah.
then maybe I could talk to them, do it
see.
online, and then not have to meet them face
You've
to
already
face.
sold them.
Yeah, exactly. And so I started working on how do I build a website. And so
Yeah.
I started teaching myself how to do that. And my brother had his own business beforehand. And so I went and met with his designer that was working on his website. And I was like, teach me how you built this website. And so just started learning, again on my own to figure out how do you do this stuff. And
I remember reading that you were making the websites, but then you saw the people you were making the websites for kept making money after you made the website.
Yes.
And so you're like, I need to have my own website. I need to sell my own stuff, right?
That's right.
And that's when the Mexican vanilla comes in.
Exactly.
Tell me about your first experience trying to import the Mexican vanilla. You had some issues.
Yeah, so with my parents being retired, they moved down to Yuma, Arizona, right at the border, and so we went down to visit them, and we'd cross over the border, and they're selling, all different kinds of fun little trinkets and stuff, and we picked up this Mexican vanilla, and I'm like, I don't even know what this stuff is, My mom's like, oh, you got to try it, it's really good. So we bring that across, and you smell the stuff, and it's like, that is amazing.
Right.
That doesn't smell like anything I've had synthetic here in the United States,
Actual, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know what the difference was, but all of a sudden after smelling it and tasting it, I was like, this makes a world of difference. And my wife, she can make some really good cookies, and every time she'd make them for people, they just go crazy over them. And so I was like, man, there's something to this vanilla. Does anybody sell this? And so, did some Google searches, or it was probably a Yahoo search back then, but,
Right.
but did some searches and found out that nobody was selling it. And so I was like, well, gosh, I think I can figure this out. I help all these companies build websites selling this stuff, so maybe I can figure it out. So I contacted the company that makes the vanilla, and so they said, oh yeah, we can't really export it into the United States. The FDA blocks us. So one of the things that they add to the vanilla to get the oil and the water to mix and stuff is the same ingredient we use in rat poisons, and it's a blood thinner.
Oh my God.
In the United States. And so
That's why they won't approve it.
Yep, and then there's other issues with bacteria and stuff that the FDA will randomly test and find in things that not purifying the water before they add the vanilla beans to it and that type of thing.
Right.
So anyway, so there's a lot of reasons why they wouldn't allow these companies to bring it in. So I contacted the FDA and I'm like, who do you allow to bring it in? They're like, we can't share that information with you. It's like, no. So it took me.
It was a good try though.
Yeah. I thought that would be an easy way to go, but they don't give out that information. So anyways, I just started beating the bushes till I found somebody and that we could import with. And so
what did you do? You look, at that point, are you looking online to try and find these people? What do you do
No, it wasn't even online. I can't remember. I can't remember the first time that I reached out to them or how I found them.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I found this family who was making it. And I think at the time they weren't on any blacklist. And so we had to work to get them approved. We had to bring a shipment across and get it tested and all that type of stuff. And so then we just had to constantly be working to make sure that, the process is clean and pure and that type of thing. And so, I started with just a few cases, started bringing them in. and it started selling. In fact, I built the website under my wife's name, so her name was Cora, and so I was like, here, I'll build this website for you. So I created this corascreations.com, and so she started selling the vanilla for us, and it was a few $100s the first month,
And people were just strictly buying it online.
Yeah.
At this point, and then you'd ship it, and you just ship it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
what did you use did you build like at that point, was there like an e-commerce platform that
we had built one for our website creation tool, and that was a really fascinating thing too, is by using our own tool, all of a sudden it's like, well, I wish it could do this,
right,
and I wish we could do that, and boy, I really need to do this. So we just started tweaking this thing and started making it better and better and better, just so I could have it for my own business, but it worked for everybody's platform at that point. And so it just kind of made sense all the way around to keep doing this. And anyways, it got to where we were doing a couple $1,000s every month, and I was like, okay, honey, it's time I took this over.
Right. How were you getting the word out at the time? How were people finding it?
Just through searches.
Through searches.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the only way, just doing pay-per-click advertising. And then we ended up getting the #1 ranking on all the major search engines, because that's what I would help companies do. And so we started doing really well with it. And so I was like, okay, it's time to bring this in-house, and I'll take care of it, because my wife, she was raising 3 kids at the time. And then she also started to get really depressed, and not over the success of the business or the strain of the business, but she dealt with a lot of depression. And, at that time, I didn't even know what it was. When I got down and discouraged, my dad kicked me in the butt, and I would get up and figure it out, and that didn't work for her. Not that I kicked her in the butt, but trying to motivate her and get her up. And it was just awful. She struggled with it, something fierce, and we went and met with tons of different doctors.
Yeah, on the story page, it said like 9 or 10 or 11, whatever, different psychiatrists, psychologists working through it, and you said nothing helped.
Yeah, nothing was helping. She actually tried 28 different medications.
Wow.
And just had awful reactions to every single one of them. Just something from her tongue turned gray, her teeth started to turn gray overnight, and she lost all of her energy. It was like, what is going on? To just almost delirious with some of the medications. It was awful. And so I'm just like, man, what is the answer to this? I remember going to some of the doctors going, I just want to see the wheel that you're spinning here and you're throwing the darts at to figure out what we're doing.
Right.
And I was by no means a health nut or anything like that. That was the answer I was going for, was through medication. And it wasn't, we couldn't find it that way. We tried everything that we could. And so anyways, then I was on one of my trips to Mexico, I was introduced to Agave Nectar. And agave for most people at that time was used in tequila. And that's how everybody knew it. That the same plant is used that way. And but if you stop it from fermenting, it's actually very sweet. And so, but that was all we knew about it. They gave me some bottles when I was down there on my trip, and I brought those bottles back, and I was like, sure, I'll try and sell them. It was a friend of the family that we were selling the vanilla for.
I gotcha. And sure, like, here, try and sell this too, type of thing.
Yeah. They're like, here. And so this company happened to be in the honey business for many years, and they had some relatives that were growing agave plants because there was a shortage in the mid '90s, and so everybody started planting agave to try and meet that demand.
Yeah.
And so they had all these relatives with agave plants, so they figured out, all right, we'll start making agave. And then they're like, here, Brian, you go ahead and try and sell it. So I take back a couple cases, and it's just slow going. Nobody's buying it. Nobody knows. When you have
what's your process to launch it then? So you put it on the website, and then you email. Like, what's the process to get the word out?
Yeah, that was it. I mean, I think we had 2,000 subscribers at that time to our email list, and we just sent off the email, and we just posted it online, and we were going after natural sweeteners as keywords and stuff like that. and that was
Did you
about
do
it.
any paid advertising at the time, or what's the
Just
paid
paid-
advertising landscape
paid-
look like at the time?
Oh gosh, it was like 5 cents a click back then.
Yeah.
It was, it didn't hardly cost anything. We had no competitors, and then I remember one time somebody from Trader Joe's called us, and at that time I was actually living in Virginia because that's where my wife's family was from, and we needed some extra help taking care of the kids and
Right.
with my wife with her being so sick. And so we were living in Virginia, and at that time Trader Joe's didn't exist over there. And so somebody called us and they're like, tell us more about this agave. And I'm like, it's sweet, it tastes good.
Like, can we talk to someone else? No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. I'm like, hold on, let me see if I can find
Let
somebody.
me patch someone in from Mexico. No, so there's
Yeah, change your voice. Hi. So, anyways, and so I talked to them for a bit about it, and they
why
said,
were they
well,
calling you?
well, they were interested to learn more about the product. They had found out about it, or I don't know how they had found out about it, but they had heard about it, and they were interested in a natural sweetener. And so I told them everything I knew about it, which was very little, and they said, you know what, it's just too niche. We don't think it's ever going to take off. I was like, oh, okay, there goes my chance of getting it into stores,
Really interesting, though, that Trader Joe's called you.
Yeah. And so then I had somebody else come to me and say, in Washington, D.C., which is, a couple hours away from where I was living, there was a facility there that would test your products with diabetics. And you should give them a call and see if it works well with diabetics.
Interesting.
Again, I was like, diabetics, what is that exactly? I mean, I've heard of it, but I didn't know what that was, back in the early 90s or whatever. So I was just like, or no, it was, late 90s, I guess. So anyway, so I was like, let's, I'll give it a shot. I'll find out what it entails. And so I went to this organization and I said, I'd like to test this product, and how much do you need? And then how much does it cost? And I just went, I don't know if I'll ever recoup my investment from the cost of this test. Like, we haven't ever made that much on this product. We barely made that much with the vanilla, and I'm just like,
What were they charging at the time?
I think it was like 15 grand or something. So I mean, it wasn't a ton.
It's like, you're like, how many bottles of this stuff do I need to sell? Yeah.
Serious. And it was just at the time.
But you did it.
Business.
But you did it.
Yeah. So
what made you decide to actually do it?
I prayed about it, to be honest. And I was
if it's
like,
the right decision.
Yeah, I was just like, I gotta feel good about it one way or another. And I said, if it doesn't pass the test, do I get my money back? And they're like, oh no, you don't get your money back. It's like, crap. And so I had to make the decision. Once I spent the money, it was gone, and I would never see it again, And so I was like, I'll take that chance. And I prayed about it with my wife, and we were like, we feel good about it. We got to take the chance, or it's never going to do anything.
Yeah.
So we borrowed money from my website development business, and we invested it into there, and we're like, all right, let's give it a shot. And so we took a chance, we tested it with them, and I remember the call that I received from the owner of the testing facility, and her first question was, tell me more about this agave. And I was like, well, I don't know anything more. That's why I gave it to you guys, I don't know. And they're like, well, how's it produced? So I went through that whole process, and I was like, do you have test results? And she goes, yeah, and they're really good.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, okay. And so she explains, the glycemic index, which I'd never even heard of before, of a product, and how that's the amount of sugar that your body absorbs from whatever you eat. And
you have a really good display on your website that people can click through. It's globalgoods.com/glycemic testing agave nectar, and you can see that was probably from the test results. The volcanic agave nectar is 27, and then like a high fructose corn syrup is like almost 90.
Right.
So it's a huge difference there.
Yeah, anything that's higher than 55 points can't be considered good for diabetics. It
Yeah,
just causes their blood sugar level to spike too high.
yeah.
And then there was another test that they did called the glycemic load, and that's the total amount of sugar that your body absorbs. And that can't be higher than 10 points, and we were at 1.6.
Wow.
And so she's like, this stuff is amazing. This is
Yeah.
really good. And
And it's
so,
not all, I mean, clarification in, disclaimer there, it's not all agave because some agave add other things to it. And
right.
so there is corn syrup and stuff in there.
Once we got that certification, that approval saying it was diabetic friendly, all of a sudden that starts showing up on everybody's agave, and everybody's going, "Oh, this is low glycemic and this is diabetic friendly and all this type of stuff." And it's like, "Whoa, whoa, hold on! Do you guys have testing for that?" And so we had to kind of start policing things from some
Right.
competitors that started showing up. But even before the competitors started showing up. Oprah had her own show back in the day, and Dr. Oz was her guest doctor that she would bring on every so often. And somebody asked Dr. Oz, what sweetener do you like to use? And he goes, I like to use agave nectar, and pulls out our bottle.
Really, it was your bottle.
Yeah, and so it was just like
Wow.
unbelievable. The sales went through the roof. We sold out in days, and then it just started rolling from there. And so we just started manufacturing more and more. And then 6 months later, when we finally got caught up, Oprah did a rerun of her show, and it just took off again. And so that kind of put us on the map. That started creating all the competitors at that point. And then people are going, okay, it takes 8 years to grow this agave plant to full maturity. It costs a lot of money to manufacture it. And then you have to start all over again with that process. And so people started coming up with different, I'll just
Adding
call,
different things.
yeah,
Sure.
variations of
Yeah.
agave. And
It's
because
not
it's
pure. Yeah, so what's the
right.
difference between like a typical one that someone gets, maybe at the grocery store, and yours?
So it's interesting, when stuff is manufactured in Mexico and you bottle it here in the United States, you label it the way that you receive it. And so if they're telling you that it's 100% agave, you're required to put 100% agave on your label here in the United States. And so that's how a lot of manufacturers do it. But in Mexico, it's a little bit different. Business is kind of what you can get away with is how business is done. And it's not always that way, but for a good part of the business that I've seen around the world, it's that way in a lot of different areas. Whatever you can do to make more money for your own family, that's
Yeah.
what you need to do. And that's not what my business was based off of. That's not the kind of person that I am. And, going back to my wife being really sick, we started eating a lot healthier. We started researching, okay, I mean, we were drinking our sodas, doing, whatever, eating our cake all the time, whatever it was,
Right.
doing
A
all
lot
that
of sugar, processed sugars, and
Yes, exactly.
yeah,
And so as I started to learn more about what diabetes was, my wife's mother is a diabetic and starting to lose feeling in her feet and that type of thing. And
yeah,
so
horrible.
I was
Yeah,
like, maybe we got to start paying attention to this a little bit more. So I started to teach myself how to make different things using the agave. And so we started eliminating a lot of the sugar that we were eating.
yeah.
And all of a sudden, she starts turning around and she starts doing better, having
Really?
more energy,
Wow.
feeling happier, all that kind of stuff. I wouldn't say it was all sunshine and roses, but it really was a significant change in her life that
Yeah.
allowed her to do a lot more. And so I was like, man, there's something to this. And then when I find out that the other companies, manufacturers, there's only 3 of us in Mexico that are making this stuff now, and the other 2 are making it in a way that isn't the healthiest way. And it's much cheaper and you can get it to go a lot further that way, but it's not the healthiest
What are
way.
some things people add into it to make it go further,
They
like corn syrup?
hydrolyze sucrose into it, and also you'll start finding maltose. Malt comes from corn, so it's possible that it's corn syrup and stuff like that.
Right.
In fact, I caught my own guy, so I skipped a step in there. But after that testing that we had done and found out that it was good for diabetics, I went and invested a lot more money into the facility in Mexico to get it up to manufacturing standards that we would like to see here in the
Right.
United States.
Right.
And so I had some ownership with them through that process.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they still do things the way that they do them in Mexico, but I have a large say as to how this product comes out in the end. And one time I was just thinking, you know what? I should just keep these guys on their toes, and I'm going to test this next shipment that comes across the border.
Right.
And so I stopped it. We have a warehouse in Laredo, Texas. And so I stopped it in Laredo, and I had an independent lab come in and test it. And all of a sudden, sucrose started showing up in our agave, and it had never been there before. And I was like, whoa, time out. I'm like, where'd that come from? And they said, oh, we're trying this new process down here that everybody's doing, and it makes it so much cheaper. You'll be so much happier because we're going to make so much money off of it. And I was like, no, guys, I use this stuff in my own home, and
Right.
my customers are buying this from me because it's good for diabetics, and we can't be adding sucrose to it for a number of reasons, and they were really upset with me. And I said, look, I will drop everything right now, and I will stop selling it if that's how we're going to continue.
Right.
And so they were upset with me, but we stuck to it. And from that point on, I test every single batch that comes across the border. I'm great friends with the family. We know each other's children, all kinds of stuff. We're really good friends, but at the same time, business is done differently in other parts of the world.
You don't want to risk it.
Yeah, with every product we bring in, I test everything once it hits the United States, and I test
How do you test it? You just open a random bottle, or what happens?
Yeah. Yeah. And so that way, they'll do their own testing in Mexico or in Africa or whatever, which is good because I don't want them sending something that they know is bad. But at the same time, you could have a separate bottle that's not matching the rest of the lot that's being shipped to me. And so, we have an arrangement with some testing facilities and people that sample stuff right at the borders, and then we can determine whether we bring it in to ship it.
Yeah.
So, and that has helped us a ton with manufacturers. So, like I was saying, where we ship lots of drums and we ship lots of bulk items, and totes and
You ship the
truckloads.
smaller packages too, though, right?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. But right now, you've got the largest sugar manufacturer in the world who's now stepped into the agave realm. And so they're selling bottles, the C&H Sugar, Domino Sugar, that organization.
Oh, yeah.
They now have their own agave brand in all the grocery stores. And so it's like, how the heck could I ever compete with those guys? And on the store shelves, everybody says 100% agave. But when you deal with manufacturers,
If you tested that stuff, it's probably not.
they look at all the test results of everybody's products because they're required to do that. And when they see that ours doesn't have or has the lowest amount of fructose, the lowest amount of glucose, there's no sucrose, no maltose, nothing like that, they're all like, well, why does this one have it and this one doesn't?
Right.
We'll go with the one that doesn't.
Right,
So
right.
We win that battle a lot of the time.
So you in grocery stores too, or no?
Not many, to be honest. So we do most of our selling online.
So it's called the volcanic blue agave. So why volcanic?
Because it was interesting. On one of my first trips down there, walking through these fields where the agave plants are growing, I tried to photograph it. Part of it was my limited ability with photographing in my camera, but the ground, the soil shimmered. It almost looked like there were shards of glass in the soil. And I tried to take a picture of it, and it never really
Didn't do it justice.
Yeah, and they said, this whole region is all volcanic soil. And it's just high in nutrients, and the agave plants grow like crazy here. So I decided to call it Volcanic Nectar. One reason was because before that, I called it Blue Agave Nectar, and everybody started using that name because that's the type of plant. It was a blue agave plant. So everybody was using that name, and then it was hard to differentiate between who was certified, who wasn't, that type of thing.
Right.
So I decided to trademark the name Volcanic Nectar and push it that way.
So where else can people get it, Brian? So they can get it on globalgoods.com/agave nectar. Any other places online that people can buy it?
There's some groups that are selling it on eBay and some that sell it on Amazon as well.
So it's not you, but it's you maybe selling it to someone. And do other people buy it in those huge drums and rebottle it?
Yeah,
too?
they do.
They will.
Yeah, not many, but yeah, they do.
So they can get it on Amazon, but I mean to make sure it's yours because that may have a different label on it. right? If it's on Amazon or eBay.
Right.
But yours it can only be found pretty much on your site.
Yeah.
Um,
We don't allow the certifications and stuff to be used on other brand labels just because we can't monitor.
You just don't know.
What's
Yeah.
going on with those. So
Yeah. So did the site crash when Dr. Oz mentioned it? I mean,
it didn't.
how does it not? I mean, you're a web person, obviously, but that much traffic
it's
to a site.
interesting. So so I was living in Utah at the time, and my in-laws in Virginia said, "You've got to put on Oprah, and you gotta watch his show because you're not going to believe what happened." So they told me what happened. So I immediately jumped on my website and wrote "Thanks Oprah" and put a coupon code up there. Receive 10% off or whatever using the coupon code "Thanks Oprah." And then I don't even know how I did it back in the day, but somehow I recorded the television show on my laptop.
Yeah, where is it? Is it? I would think it'd be on your site somewhere. Can you find it?
It was until I realized that was illegal.
I see.
The next day after their show, I had the video clip with Dr. Oz on there, and I was promoting that like crazy. And I put, like a watermark at the bottom saying, globalgoods.com or whatever it was, and then all of a sudden you'd start seeing the video showing up on other competitor sites, and they would shrink the video so it would cut off my volcanic nectar thing at the bottom,
God, people are ruthless, huh?
Yeah, they are. And then I started hearing about Oprah's attorneys going after some other people that were using her show to promote their products as well, and I was like, is that wrong? I think I had done it for a year or so, and then I realized, I was like, that's wrong. I was like, oh crap, I better pull that off.
I think in those cases, though, they specifically mentioned that particular company. Like in this case, Dr. Oz held up your bottle. Yeah. So it's a little different. I mean, I don't know if it's different. I'm just thinking, then someone saying, he said that this type of product is good, and they start using the video. Like, he actually held up your product in the video. So I wonder, did you ever contact them to see, can we use it?
He ordered from us. So his wife, she was the one who would place orders from us. And so we were actually in communications with Oprah's personal chef for a while. Yeah. And he was making, different meals for her and using our agave and stuff. We had these little squeeze packets, and they would put those in the green room of her show so people could add it to their tea and stuff like that. And so, we had a great relationship going for a while. I didn't even know he was ordering because it was under his name.
You still can't include the video. You still took it down.
Yeah, we still took it down.
Yeah.
I was too small to fight with anybody like that. Those things, whether it was right or wrong, I decided to play it safe. So, anyways, it worked real well for us. Kind of put us on the map, and then everybody started calling, and it worked well.
That's wild. So is that why you started making the squeezable agave packets? Like what sparked that?
Oh, I was sitting in a restaurant, and you start seeing the little sugar packets there, or sometimes they'll have honey in little packets, and so I started going through, okay, how do you make those type of things? And that was real tricky to figure that process out. We had a machine in Mexico where we were trying to do it, but the agave, every time the machine would shut off, there would be a tiny little, like just a little drip of, a stream of agave that wouldn't quite stop, and the machine would seal, but it wouldn't be able to seal that one little spot. And so we bring them all in, and they'd be leaking and just cause all kinds of problems. So we finally found a company in the United States that would do less than 1 million of those packets. It's like, I don't want to produce 1 million if we're going to be holding on to them for 10 years.
Right.
And so anyways, we found somebody who would make a smaller run for us, and started working that angle. But then, the industry itself took a hit several years ago, where some people on the internet started saying bad things about agave. They're going, this stuff isn't any better for you than high fructose corn syrup. And it was difficult to argue with them because they found some agaves that had 90% fructose in it.
Right.
And ours is closer to like a 50% fructose, so anyways, there's all kinds of stuff that, people were doing to the product, which was kind of messing it up for the entire industry. And so it took a hit. The online sales took a hit for a while, and they bounced back, but the trajectory was going like this, and then it just kind of went like this.
Right.
It still goes up each year. It's still one of our best-selling products, but it's not progressing like it used to.
So, Brian, at the height of the Dr. Ostig, how many bottles do you think you sold
Oh man!
in a day? Like, what was the high for the day that you remember?
Honestly, I don't remember. That was like in 2005, I think, and I really don't remember. I just remember being out of stock before the day was over.
Really? Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
It just went that fast, and so we were just, how fast can we manufacture this stuff? And by the time we built up an inventory that was large enough, they did the rerun, and in that time we weren't. I think we still went out of stock again, but not until. It took us several days or weeks maybe, and then we finally were able to produce it at a much faster pace at that point.
Wow. So go back to your wife's condition, because you were starting to say that it was getting better. What ended up happening?
So, we were living in Virginia at the time, and she started getting better and better. And she was also
And this was without drugs, right?
Actually, no. At that time, she was on Zoloft.
Okay.
And we were eating healthier, but she started doing better.
Yeah.
So then we moved out to Utah, and had to change health insurances. And we went in to get her prescription for 300 milligrams of Zoloft, and they said, that's not possible. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's what she's been taking this whole time in Virginia. They're like, that's an unheard of dose. We're like, what? And they said, yeah, there's no research that supports that type of dose. We can't write a prescription for that amount. So I was freaking out. I was like, I don't want to go backwards in where we were, And so I immediately booked a trip to Mexico, and I bought the Mexican version of Zoloft. I bought like $500 worth, which is a ton down there. And I brought it back just going, I got to keep this going, But then I started thinking about it going, wait a minute, if she shouldn't be on that level, is that healthy? Is that going to help us? So we really started working on a lot of different things of, eating a lot healthier at that point, and teaching. We met a therapist guy who was just fantastic, who taught us how to work through our issues mentally, basically, where he had this thing called a thought record, which taught you how to take some of the thoughts that would bring you down and discourage you, and how to look at them in a different, from a different perspective, basically. And started teaching us just a lot of different ways. And I say
tools that you can use on your own.
Yeah, exactly. And then exercise. Exercise was a huge part of it, And so eating healthy, exercise, sleeping better. We started working on all these things naturally, and all of a sudden she started kicking it. And it still hits her. There's days where she'll be down, and just like when she goes down, she could sleep the entire day and sleep the entire night. And so there's days when that still happens, but she just stays with it. And there's times where, hey, we go on vacation and we eat terrible, or we do whatever, and then we come back, and there's usually a crash after that.
Right.
And so, but then after that, we get back into our routine again, and we try and eat healthy. And then I started noticing it with our children, where, they're great kids.
Yeah. You have 3 kids, right?
Yeah. Yep. And so they're great kids, but then, we'll slack off with them, or they'll go to somebody's birthday party and pound a ton of
pizza, cake. Yeah, all that stuff.
You name it, they pound it like they've never had it before, and then they come home and they're just bouncing off the walls, and then they hit their crash period, and so at that point I'm looking at my wife's old Zoloft bottles, going, I'm going to start popping those myself,
right,
trying to hold this whole family together sometimes.
And all the businesses.
Yeah.
So we talked about the Mexican vanilla.
Yep.
What's the most popular size that people buy? By the way, I have to say something about the Mexican vanilla, because I didn't put this together. You're a graphic designer, but the design is beautiful on the packaging. Globalgoods.com Mexican or / Mexican vanilla. It's amazing. It looks like a tequila bottle, essentially.
Yeah, it's
Tell me about coming up with the design, because that's
it's a hand blown glass bottle, and
wow.
so they use a lot of those type of bottles when making tequila down in Mexico. And you know what's funny is I'm a Mormon, and so I don't drink alcohol. And so it's kind of funny every time I go down there, they're like, "Hey, you got to try this." I'm like, "No, guys, I don't do that." And so they always get me in some type of situation where they're trying to get me to. But anyways, it's more of a comic thing that we go
It's
through.
a beautiful looking bottle and label.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they use a lot of those designs when doing the real fancy tequilas, and so I was like, well, why don't we do that with the Mexican vanilla?
Yeah.
And so we started bottling in that packaging, and lots of boutique stores and stuff like to pick that up, and
Yeah.
they that sells really well for them.
What's the most popular size? Because you have the 240 milliliter, 1 liter. Because I know it's a conscious decision. Because every size you include, you have to spend money on the packaging and the
Right.
labeling and everything. So it's not a decision I'm sure you take lightly.
Right.
You know,
Surprisingly, the size that sells by far the most is the 1 liter bottle.
1 liter. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm wondering in our cabinet, like, I'm wondering why the label looks familiar. I'm wondering if we actually have this in our cabinet.
If not, send me your address. We'll
Yes.
get you a bottle.
We'll be getting some agave, yeah, for sure. So the 1 liter
Yeah.
sells the most. And so we talked about the Mexican vanilla, the agave, and the agave. So what's the most popular size for that one? Because you have the smaller bottles, you have the 1 gallon, you have the 5 gallon, and then you have the huge drum of
Right.
the agave.
Well, yeah, with the agave,
And the squeezable ones too.
yeah, with the agave and the coconut oil, we sell more drums than anything else.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, but with the smaller bottles, it's the 24-ounce agave bottle. We sell a lot of those. And then with the coconut oil, gosh, it's a toss-up between the 28-ounce bottle and the 1 gallon.
What's your favorite recipe? I know you have a recipe book, the cooking
Yeah.
with agave. What's your favorite personal recipe that people can think about using agave nectar?
Cheesecake.
Cheesecake.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
in replace of just sugar, or what do people
Sugar.
use? Sugar.
Yeah, in replace of sugar. You can also use coconut oil in the cheesecake. You can use Mexican vanilla in there. So there, you
Yeah.
get all 3 products into one
Yeah,
ingredient.
I'm gonna get this because I make my own ice cream and non-dairy, with coconut milk, and the agave would be perfect for that, and probably the Mexican vanilla too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's surprising how many times you can use all three in the same type
Yeah.
of ingredient.
And the coconut oil. And we talked about, so let's talk about anything else to mention with the coconut. We talked about the story of that and the Cocave we haven't talked that much about. I mean, we talked a little bit about you forming it. What were you able to do so it didn't emulsify?
Well, I just learning how the different emulsifiers out there and how they work and combining those type of things. Then is just basically measurements after that. How much agave before the lotion starts feeling sticky. You don't want that feeling on it. And so anyways, it was just a balance in our kitchen. We just destroyed our kitchen for a couple of months, basically, where we were just mixing and trying different samples, and then things would get moldy. And we're like, oh, okay, so what are some natural things that you can use to, prohibit the mold and that type of thing? And so we tried different formulas and just finally came up with a formula that worked, that was all natural. And then we had to find somebody who could manufacture it for us.
Was that hard to do?
No,
to
it
find
wasn't
someone?
actually. No, and it took us. I mean, it took us a while to find the right group that would do small runs, because I didn't want to do another 100,000 bottle lotion run, because it was like, I don't know if it's even going to sell. I didn't know if it would even work then. So
Right.
we found somebody who would take a chance, and they just did. I think it was 5,000 bottles for us. And so that was the smallest run that they would only let us do once. And so I was like, all right, let's hope it works. And
Right.
it started off a little bit slower because it wasn't our normal food product line. But then as we started introducing it to all the massage therapists and cosmetologists and stuff, it really started to take off at that point.
So when do you, because again, it's more time, energy, resources, money to expand the product line. You have the
Right.
lotion. So at what point what was the next product on the Cocave?
Then we created the shampoo and conditioner.
Okay. Why that
And
one next?
just because of the cosmetologists and beauticians that I
They were
worked
asking
with in
about
the
it.
other industry. So yeah, they were like, and it was, well, and because, people have problems with their hair, not just dandruff and stuff, but with their scalp. And, we started a formula, and the very first one I created really wasn't that good. My wife didn't want me to sell it. She's like, it's not that good. And I'm like, but it's natural and people will like that. And so I launched it, and some people came back and said, this is fantastic. Other people said, it's not my favorite, especially when it came down to the conditioner. And so we reformulated both the shampoo and conditioner after I learned some things. It was fascinating because people are like, some of the customer base that we had would give us suggestions. Well, you should try this instead of that, and you should do this instead of that.
Like
So I
for
listened to them.
ingredients, or what were they
Yeah,
saying? Really?
yeah, with ingredients, yeah. And so I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. I don't know why, or I would research the ingredient and figure out why they would suggest that.
Right.
So I went back to the drawing board and kind of reformulated it and loved it. My wife loved it. And, now we get people that are just, they can't live without it. And so that's a good following to start building.
That's amazing. So each new product line, I mean, obviously in the beginning, the Mexican vanilla was started from scratch because you didn't have any customers. But then
Right.
each one you introduce the Agave Nectar, you get more customers.
Yeah.
And obviously the Dr. Oz was a
Right.
huge thing. And then the coconut oil, same thing. You kind of introduce it to your current customer base. Beyond the current customer base, what else do you do to get the word out? For people who have their own e-commerce company, what else has worked for you?
Well, in all honesty, we have over 65,000 websites that we've built through the massage therapists, cosmetologists,
Wow.
estheticians,
Really?
through that group. Yeah. And now the vast majority of those websites now have the products selling on their website.
Wow.
So we take care of the credit card processing, the shipping, the everything for those people. And we just took their websites from just being a regular phone book
So they
page
actually can make money.
yeah, so they can start making money with it. We take care of all that for them. And then we gave them the ability to print their own labels to put on the bottles. We created a mixing wand where you could mix in your own ingredients to customize it for your customer base and all kinds of stuff. So
Right.
that's really starting to grow. And
That's wild.
2 months ago, I just built the website iwantaspa.com.
Okay.
And so you can find a professional in your area. Some people stock the Cocave on their shelves. Other people just have it on their websites. But that's a good place to go if you want to find a professional in your area.
So do you still have to manage the back end of the people are still running the sites from the original one that you created, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So you still have that business.
yeah. It's still going.
So is there a lot of updating you have to do there, or is it pretty much self-sufficient?
It's just kind of running itself right
Wow,
now.
65,000 websites. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So the next one was the shampoo and conditioner for the Cocave. What was the next one after that?
Then it was the different essential oil type blends. And so we
Yeah.
started making things that would work really well for eczema, and you can
Yeah.
mix that in with the
Yeah.
lotion.
What got you into the essential oils?
We have some essential oil companies here in Utah that are some of the largest in the world,
Really?
and they charge out the nose for their oils.
It's expensive.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so, I met some of the manufacturers of these oils throughout my travels, and it's not really that expensive. But when they do it using the model that they're using, which is kind of a multi-level marketing
Yeah,
model,
a lot of them, exactly. Yeah.
then they have to mark it up to cover everybody in the downlines. And I'm not a real fan of that marketing style myself. And so, especially dealing with the professionals, I give them a percentage of the sales that they sell from their website, but I don't do several tiers of that.
Yeah.
And so by not doing that, we can beat everybody on those prices. And they actually buy some of those oils from us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I've negotiated with the manufacturers of some of these places, and they buy the oils from us. And so, anyways, so it's kind of fascinating. That's the only way I'll work with multi-level marketing companies is if I'm supplying them the products,
Right. You
not
know
buying.
it's quality also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
What's your
anyways,
favorite? What's the most popular essential oil?
we've got the eczema blend. That's something that nobody else
Yeah.
has.
What's in that?
Um,
I'm looking for that right now. Um,
it's got some interesting things like horseradish in it.
really?
Yeah, so just in doing some research and finding natural ways of things that people have used, periwinkle and stuff like that.
Oh
And
yeah, I see that. The Cocave eczema relief is that?
yes,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And so it's really fascinating some of the different oils and plants and stuff that you can mix together that people have found have worked in all these other countries that we visit.
Yeah.
And I've been to Thailand, and they introduced me to a lot of these types of oils where, oh yeah, they use this stuff naturally all the time.
So Brian, if you were to go back to yourself, over 5, 10 years ago, what would you have told yourself to avoid? Like what mistakes or things?
Man, I always tell my wife, I'm not sure I would do it again.
Exactly.
There was so much stress when, the stuff in Africa came in, and that was, a real expensive shipment that, was bad oil. And we ended up finding a source for it. One time, the FDA tested our agave nectar and found pesticides in it that we weren't using. And we found out that they were spraying a lake where we were pulling the water from to water our fields. They were spraying a lake for mosquitoes and that type of thing, and then we were all pulling our water from that lake. Everybody does to spray their plants, and that got into our agave, and so it kind of messed us up and put us on the blacklist with the FDA for
Wow.
like 6 shipments or so, and that was an absolute nightmare that slowed everything down. And so we just kept, and then you had the sugar where they mixed in the sugar with
So
our.
where do you even get the water at that point? I mean, it's
Well, you
like
can
they're getting the water from the lake.
yeah,
It's not like
you
you
can
could
still
make a new lake. I mean, what's
right. No, you can still use the water. You just have to filter the water
Oh,
before it gets
I
put on the
gotcha.
plants, and
It's an
so.
extra step, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we had to invest in that, and honestly, we had the agave and the coke. Well, it was before coconut oil, so we had the agave certified organic, and we started our own bottling process here in Utah just to make sure that the standards were what we wanted them to be.
Yeah.
And so we were putting the organic logo on our label. And then we found out that, oh, we have to have our facility organic certified when we were doing the bottling. So it's like we made tons of mistakes, not on purpose, but as
Right.
we learned about it, it was like, oh, quick,
Yeah.
we got to invest this and we got to do this and we got to test for that and
Right.
whatever it was. And so it's just been one learning process after another. And, if I were to start it all over again, it would be such an impossible task because of all the stuff I know now. I would never be able to start it from the very beginning and do everything correctly, I guess is the way you would say it. But because I didn't know, I just kind of started it, and I used the Oprah video, or I used,
Right.
whatever it was. And I used the organic logo when I shouldn't have, or whatever, and so anyways, it was just a learning process as you go. And it's that way with every
It's
business.
amazing. It's amazing what you've done. And so, you're a web guy, technical at heart. What kind of software and tools do you use to manage the business?
Well, we built all of our own e-commerce tools,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so there isn't really much I could promote with that other than our own tool. But the uh, let's see.
Yeah, so someone goes on your site, obviously you built the site, and then someone goes to the shopping cart, you built the shopping cart, and then you go, I guess you use like a fulfillment center or whatever to ship out the
Yeah.
product. Anything used to manage like the statistics on the back end, or do you actually have that built into your website and things like that?
No, we with one of our newer sites that I've created, the I Want a Spa one, we're just using Google Analytics.
Yeah.
They're doing a pretty good job right now with the information that they provide. So we've
Yeah.
just been using them.
I'm wondering what's the your take on not selling it on other sites like Amazon or eBay, where other people are maybe taking your product and selling it? What's your take on that?
I toss that one back and forth all the time.
Yeah.
And I've got somebody in my office who's researching it now and just going, maybe that's a route that we need to go, just because so many people are getting used to buying stuff off of Amazon.
Yeah.
We have really good rankings on search engines. If you go to Google and search Mexican vanilla, for example, we'll be in the top 1, 2, or 3 spots, just depending.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And so anyway, so we get a lot of traffic that way, and so that's always been my pride and joy, because I know that stuff well. You know, I've always handled that well. And but it's things are changing.
So it's a thought. It's like it's a conversation that you're having with you and your staff and things like that. Because I mean, obviously, when I was doing research, I looked it up, and I would think guys would do amazing on some of those platforms like Amazon. Yeah. Because people are on Amazon. But I didn't know if there was like a certain reason why, or like maybe you just sell in huge drums and you're like, no one's going to buy a drum on Amazon or something.
Yeah, no, they won't be buying.
But you do have like a smaller bottles that you offer that people can buy too.
And honestly, we use my kids and a few other kids from their friends and stuff that do a lot of the shipping for us. Yeah. And so I keep that part of the business around because it's a great experience for them. And like my daughter just applied for another job, and she was a shipping manager for Global Goods at one point. Just
sounds official.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, it's just good experience.
It's a multinational company, Global Goods. It is. It really is.
Yeah. So, anyways, it's just kind of fun, but it gives them something to do. And, we have other employees as well, but it's just a good experience for them. Yeah. And it's not a huge money maker for us anymore. It used to be everything, but it isn't so much anymore.
So, Brian, first of all, I appreciate your time. This has been unbelievable. Thank you for sharing the stories. They're really amazing. I have a few more questions. Before I ask them, where can we point people towards? I mean, I obviously talked about globalgoods.com. Any other websites that they should check out?
Check out the iwantaspa.com.
iwantaspa.com.
Yep. Find a professional in your area and give them some business.
Yeah.
Get a massage, get your hair done, whatever.
So I always ask, since the e-commerce mastery series, Inspired Insider, what's been the lowest business moment and how you push through, and then the proudest? What's been the lowest?
I would say that bad shipment of the coconut oil was a real tough one to overcome. That one was.
Why is that? Because it seems like you handled it pretty well, and you found.
Well, I didn't tell you how much time it took to handle it really well. It just felt like, I was sitting there calling the dump, trying to find out how much it would cost to dispose of 80 drums of oil at the local dump, and I wasn't quite sure how we were going to get through that. That was an expensive mistake. And then it felt like I couldn't trust the guys in Africa anymore, because if I bring in another 80 drums like that, then we're toast, and so it was just those expensive mistakes when you're first starting off with things where we invested a lot of money to get to that point, and then to have it kind of blow up on us, that was a low point for us. And that was, it ended up turning around, and it was really good.
Yeah. How long did it take for you to actually then figure out, okay, we could sell it to this lotion company and they're going to use it?
It was several months.
It was.
Yeah. And, the thing is as you get older, or as I'm in the business longer, when bad things happen, it doesn't freak me out nearly as much as it used to.
Yeah.
Because you look back and you just go, I could have died so many times already, or the business could have been pushed under so many times already, that this is just a blip in the radar, and we'll just keep on going. We'll figure it out. Yeah. And so now I've got guys, that are new to the business, that they see a problem and they're like, oh, this is the worst
They're freaking
ever.
out. Yeah.
Like, we'll get through it. It's no big deal. And, 2 weeks later, it's fine, and everybody's breathing again and whatever else.
What's something lately that someone... Because there's always fires to be put out, right? What's something lately that someone freaked out about that it was just a blip to you now because you've dealt with so much?
Yeah, we just launched that I Want a Spa program, and the way that we had configured everything really limited the amount of people that we could build websites for. So I revamped the entire system, because when I built the first system, that was before mobile devices and everything else was around, and so we had to redo everything. We couldn't put a Band-Aid on that old system anymore.
Right.
And so we started to work on, all right, how do we transition the 65,000 people over to the new system? And then as we got to about 15,000 people transitioning over, all of a sudden we started seeing problems with the database. And we're like, oh, crap, we built this wrong after all these years? And so I was like, we got to tweak this. We got to do it differently.
Yeah.
We got to make some changes to it. And so that was just a few months ago.
So proudest moment, when it's one of the proudest moments, business-wise, for you?
Launching that Cocave line, because before that, that in terms of a product aspect, that was one of the proudest moments. There's been many, but I always wanted to create something that no one's ever created before.
Yeah.
Agave, anybody with enough money can go and create agave. Coconut oil, you can bring in coconut oil. Mexican vanilla, same type of thing. I wanted to create something that no one's created before, and so I was really, really proud of that product, and even more proud of how it's helping people versus just creating a product, and so I really like that. But then on a personal level, I really love helping people.
Yeah.
And last time or 2 times ago when we were in the Dominican Republic working on essential oils, we came across a family who 2 days before we arrived in the DR, their home had burned down.
Jeez.
And their home is, probably the size of your office that you're sitting in.
I've been to Dominican Republic, and for me, the perception was there's hotels, and then there's really like small tin huts. I didn't see anything in between when we were traveling around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's exactly it. And so, we were able to help build a new home for that family. And, we've helped work on other projects and homes there, and built a internet cafe and that kind of thing. And so we're doing some different projects there now, and that's just becoming really fun.
Yeah.
And seeing that you're able to help people that had nothing before, I found that drives me and motivates me more than all the product stuff. Those are just a means to an end.
Yeah. Talk about that, because you've built those things. But what you're creating in these places is really sustainability for them. Yeah. What's one of those stories where you remember, because of, they're getting coconuts and bringing it to you and you're paying them for it, or you've created all these jobs. What's one of those stories that touched you because of all the jobs you're creating?
Being able to have kids go to schools. Yeah. I can tell you a number of stories where, you see the tears in the mother's eyes as their child is the very first child that gets to go to school.
Yeah.
And girls that are being able to go to schools in places where they never had an opportunity to before. Yeah. And some of the schools that we help, like in the Dominican Republic, a little girl has a deformed arm, and just seeing her having school clothes to wear, being able to participate with all the other kids, and having my children go and interact with them.
That's amazing. I'm sure that they've seen so much. Yeah.
And we do some amazing fun things as a family when we go on these trips. We'll ride elephants, we'll pet tigers, we'll swim with sharks. We've done some just amazing things. Most
yeah, in one of the pictures you're holding a baby tiger, feeding it. I'm like, if it's a tiger, I'm not sure if I'm holding it.
If you look at the milk bottle on that one, the milk was almost gone, and I was just going, take the picture quick, because I don't want to know what he's going to do when he's out of milk.
For me, tigers are it's unnatural for me to be in a picture in that close proximity to a tiger. I don't care how domesticated they are.
Yeah. but the fascinating thing, after each one of these trips, I asked my children, what was your favorite thing that we did on this trip?
Yeah.
And I just doing some of those fun things that I listed there. Every time they say it was helping the kids in this one particular village.
Yeah.
There's one village where we have a basketball court, and we go and we play with these kids and play basketball with them, and it's just so much fun. We just have so much fun and interacting and helping people, and then giving my children that experience and having them appreciate it, so that when we're at home and they've got the nicer things at home, they don't they
True
appreciate those
appreciation.
things more. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and sometimes, I'll be honest, sometimes we got to remind them. It's like, what would a kid in Africa say to having to eat their vegetables, whatever it is? And they're like, I know, Dad, I know.
And the thing is, they've experienced that firsthand, so they do know.
You're right.
Yeah. That's amazing.
My son is soon going to try to work on his Eagle Scout award. And so he's going, Dad, what's a project I can do in another country for his big Eagle Scout project? And so he wants to take something on himself and wants to start doing something. And so I'll be curious to see what he comes up with. But those are the types of things that I want them to learn.
Yeah.
And, they're not afraid of race. They've seen Mexican kids, they've seen black kids in Africa, or Haitian kids or Dominican Republic kids. They've seen them all, and they're not scared of them. And seeing them swing on the same swing together of a swing set that was built, it's awesome. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, for you, what's in the pipeline? What's for nations expanding? Is anything in the pipeline you can share as far as nations that you're looking into setting up, or products? Like, what's next for you?
So
Obviously, you're always thinking, you're always producing stuff.
Yeah.
So
we could have done this call at 4 a.m. because I was up and my brain just starts kicking in and I can't sleep, but just always thinking about the next thing. I just barely got the I Want a Spa system up and running. And so now it's okay. Let's spend a little bit more time. The Dominican Republic is the newest country that we started working in.
So what are they doing there?
Working on orange oil and lemon oil. And then we're working with another group that wants to start importing cocoa beans. They have cocoa nibs that they have there and stuff. So we're looking into that as well and seeing if that's something that we want to do. And so that's going to take a few more trips to finalize something there. But that's the big one on the horizon right now.
Is that typical for you, Brian? Do you usually wake up at 4? What's your daily routine look like?
It just depends. But sometimes that happens, and I just can't stop the thought process. And I've got several notes, and I keep my phone next to my bed, which is probably dangerous. But it's like I'll wake up in the middle of the night and go, "Has anybody done that before?" And I'll just start searching for it, And then I'll start making notes, and then I'll fall back asleep. Then I wake up like a truck rolled me over, So I can't maintain that lifestyle like I used to, But I get up pretty early. I actually coach my son's ultimate frisbee team, and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday I put in about 3 hours in the morning of working with his team.
Really? In the morning?
Yeah, in the morning.
What time does it start?
We start at 7.
Okay.
So I miss a little bit of work doing that. So that's another reason I'll wake up at 4, so I can start working with some of the other countries where they're awake during those times. Then I'll go to practice. Then I'll come home and get back into work and start going there.
Yeah.
But I got to give him props. His team won the state championship this year.
Wow! Congratulations.
We'll take it.
How old is he?
He's 14.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what lesson should we leave people with? We talked a lot about different really in the trenches stories.
The thing that you got to find what you're passionate about. And the passions change, and that's okay. When we first started our business, my passion was all about making money. It had to be. We had to get it off the ground. And then when we had enough to meet our needs, then it was like, well, what more can we do? And so we started to help with projects in Africa or wherever. And then it was, that was really fun. Maybe that's where the passion needs to be. That's a reason for getting out of bed in the morning. So we would focus on that, and put everything that we have into that. My wife, she's awesome. She's as patient can be. She knows when I get my mind set on something, just to kind of let it run its course. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I take the baseball bat and I go after it,
That's true.
And I figure it out.
Yeah. Brian, thank you so much. Everyone should check out globalgoods.com. It's been great.
Appreciate it, Jeremy.